Oh, happy NFL Draft Eve, Browns fans. We're almost there. The weeks, the months of talking about this draft and talking in circles about this guy and that guy and quarterbacks and all these different things. It all comes to an end, well, mostly tomorrow, partially tomorrow. But of course, by the end of Saturday, we'll have the beautiful picture of what the Browns roster is going to look like with all their new draft picks, all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, ready to go. And Anthony and I are here to break it on down for you. How you guys doing? Appreciate you stopping by. We do want to encourage you, as always, to subscribe to the channel, Cleveland Browns on SI. You can find more content like this, and we're going to start picking up the pace with a lot of this stuff because after this, we get the offseason program really rolling, and then before you know it, it's going to be training camp again, Megs, and we'll be watching some of these new draft picks in action.
Spence, the boys were back in town today, or excuse me, yesterday.
That's right.
Guys were rolling in. Joe Flacco was in town. He was at the Guardians game last night.
I saw that. He was good luck. He won the game. So 2-0 against the Yankees this year. Can't beat that.
Yeah, you cannot beat that. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah was at the facility. There's at least very positive that he's there. I know all offseason long we've covered it. Everyone's covered it. But it's been Andrew Berry's been very like, hey, he's getting better, but not really committing to a return or anything like that. So it was good to see him. Saw a bunch of the DBs. So it was good to see the guys get back to town for offseason workouts. But, dude, I cannot wait for draft season to be done with and for this rookie class to take shape here.
Yeah, all the speculation will finally be over, and that obviously starts with whoever the Browns are going to take at number 2 overall. Megs and I have a special show for you. We're going to go through, as Meg spent a lot of time setting up these graphics where he literally went like pick by pick. I don't know how he did it. It was probably very time-consuming. Give him a lot of credit. Shout him out in the comments. Say, good job, Anthony Moeglin, for making these. He's not necessarily like a Photoshop person by trade, but he's dangerous. He has enough to be dangerous. Exactly. So I'm looking forward to this. We're going to sort of go pick by pick here. We both did mock drafts. It's our final mock drafts. And there's some, I think, side conversations that also sort of need to be had off of some of these picks about just options the Browns have, things that they might do otherwise. And obviously the quarterback conversation is going to be a massive one, just in terms of where we think they will take a quarterback, who we actually think they'll end up with at quarterback. But we'll see how this all shakes out, Migs. But I'm imagining that we both start these, which, by the way, I don't know your draft yet. I know my draft. I put my draft out on Cleveland Browns on SI, si.com/NFL/Browns, where you can find it if you want to sort of cheat early and see what it looks like. But I'll explain the picks a little bit more in depth here as well. But I don't know who Megs took. So I don't know. Maybe he threw everybody for a loop and he went against Travis Hunter at number 2. But that seems like it's the consensus at this point.
Spence, I do believe my text to you was after my draft. The Cleveland Browns are winning the Super Bowl. Is what I believe I said. I will say before the first pick is submitted, Spencer's draft is linked below in the description. So go check it out. But all right, the pick is in. It's Travis Hunter, man. It's Travis Hunter as a Cleveland Brown for both of us, Spence. If they can pull this off, not really pull it off, but it's been a long offseason of like, hey, where are they going to go at 1? I think it's pretty much a foregone conclusion that they're picking the dual threat guy from Colorado.
Yeah, and listen, I think some people took Andrew Berry's comments specifically last week where he, gushed about Hunter and how good of a player he's going to be, called him a unicorn, compared him to Shohei Ohtani in baseball as being able to play both ways. And, I some people took that as, well, he's trying to just like lure a team to trade up for him. Like, oh, you can't miss on this guy. And it's worth noting that this week sort of started with a bang from Peter Schrager, now with ESPN, who dropped the bomb that like the Browns are fielding calls about the number 2 pick. So maybe if that's the strategy, it's working and they're trying to get somebody to come up and get to pick 2 to potentially take Travis Hunter instead. But like, to me, this has felt right for a while now, that Travis Hunter would be the guy that they would take. There's a number of reasons why. I think just his athleticism, whether he plays one way or the other, it's something that you want on your team and you can utilize in some capacity. I also think too, though, the fact that they've talked about him being a wide receiver tells you like, hey, this addresses a major need for this team on offense. They need some more wide receiver help. And one of the biggest issues for this team last year, couldn't score points. Travis Hunter's the type of player that, like, when the ball's in his hands, he's going to find ways to score you points, and that's what you need. So I was kind of against the idea of taking somebody that you consider a wide receiver, that even though he plays both ways, at 2, because the Browns, this was before Jimmy Haslam spoke at the owners' meetings, this was my sort of philosophy. It was like, they're not taking a wide receiver at 2. It just doesn't make sense. But after Jimmy Haslam spoke and he made it pretty clear, we're not going to force the issue at quarterback, that sort of changed my perspective, where now I've been sort of subscribed to the Travis Hunter thing for a while now, because if they're not going to force the issue with the quarterback situation, you take best player available. And Travis Hunter is very much that, unless you go Abdul Carter. But I just think, like, the need is bigger, and what he brings to the table, I think, is more valuable than what you're going to get from Abdul Carter.
The need is massive, and I think you'll see this here in a few minutes of where our heads are at, and kind of hoping that Andrew Berry's head is in the same spot of, like, offense, because this team was the worst offense in football last year. And even if they were just mediocre, the defense that they had last year was good enough to win football games. If the Browns even averaged 21 points a game, they're in that 6, 7, 8 win range, and they didn't do that. And so that's why I lean against, the pick of Abdul Carter, because, I joke with my buddies. It's like the headline after the game would be like, Myles Garrett and Abdul Carter get off for 3 sacks each, and the Browns lose 10-6 because they don't have guys to go score. So I think it's a good pick, and I do think in Cleveland he majors on offense. Barry talked about his superpower at the combine. This was now months ago, being his ball skills. They're going to put him on the offensive side of the ball. In obvious passing situations, they'll maybe throw him in on defense. But I think that he's that type of cat who can be a game changer for years to come in Cleveland.
Yeah, and this, you bring up Abdul Carter, by the way. I think, I also I'm reading the tea leaves here, and it's like, look at what they've addressed this offseason. Look what they haven't. They haven't done anything at wide receiver. They haven't done anything at running back. Like, these are positions that are massive needs for this team. Did they make some massive signing on the defensive line? No, but they've at least added pieces there, like Joe Tryon Shoyinka, and among others. Like, I get the sense that they've left some things kind of on the table here, because they understand, like, they added Malik Collins. I actually thought that was a really good signing by them, like a guy that can kind of disrupt from the interior. Mm-hmm. But, like, they've left some things on the table here, and I think that's by design, because they know they're going to address those things in this draft. And so Hunter addresses one of those things. Carter does not. I'm not saying that, like, you're thrilled with the moves they made on the defensive line necessarily, but they're going to add more in the draft at some point. And this is a deep edge class, by the way. Like, you can get value on an edge guy in the third, fourth, maybe even the 5th round if they were to trade back up. They don't have a 5th rounder right now, but, like, I feel good about some of the value on those guys. And I think, frankly, like, this defense right now, you could throw it out there and and feel pretty confident about where they're at in terms of, like, helping you win games. They might not be as good as they were 2 years ago, but they're good enough. Mm-hmm. And, like, you need this offense to at least kind of meet the moment when it comes to the level that the defense can play at. And Jim Schwartz's defense is built around, shifts, like guys coming in and changing and rotating on the defensive line. It'd be nice to have 2 elite pass rushers. It'd also be really nice to have somebody like Travis Hunter, who has great ball skills and can go get you some touchdowns and actually, keep you in games for once.
Spence, I didn't need to prep you on this. This is a question that I don't know if it's devil's advocate living inside me, but is there a world where Tennessee drafts him? Because the volume is so loud about, he's going to Cleveland, he's going to Cleveland, he's going to Cleveland. Like, it's a foregone conclusion that Cam Ward's going to Tennessee and Travis Hunter's going to Cleveland. Is there a world where Tennessee, like, hey, everybody, curveball, we're taking Travis Hunter?
I don't think so. The reporting from Tuesday, where it was like, Mike Borgonzi spoke and said, we have come to a consensus as an organization. Like, they seem pretty much locked in. I mean, if it happened, you're the Browns. I would say you run the card to the podium for Cam Ward. Why not? Yeah. But yeah, I don't think they're going to do that. I mean, it would throw everybody for a loop if they did, because all the reporting around that has been they're honed in on Cam Ward, and so that's who it's going to be. But yeah, that would sort of disrupt things from the start. I'm more interested if the Browns trade. Interested if the Browns, after what Peter Schrager said, are really considering this. And I'll tell you this, Megs, as time has gone on, like there's actually three like real blue chip players in this draft. It's Hunter, it's Carter, and it's Ashton Genty. And if they traded back to like 5 or 6 or something like that, and they got Ashton Genty out of this and more picks. I know people are going to be mad about drafting a running back high, but like I wouldn't be mad about that, honestly. That'd actually be a pretty good haul. I don't think they're going to trade back for what it's worth, but the report coming down like this week leading into the draft, I thought was interesting. And yeah, I listen. I don't think it's going to happen, but if they did, and that was who they came away with, I wouldn't be mad about it in the least.
No, dude, and I saw one where they traded back to 4 and got a haul from the Patriots, and then traded back again down into like I think it was 7 or 8, and ended up getting like 3 first-rounders in total because you made 2 trades, and then also came away with Shedeur Sanders. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff. We're in scary world right now with mock drafts. I think everyone's done a billion of them. Texted my buddy tonight, and he was like, "I've done too many. I don't even want to see yours right now. I'm over it." But I do think that I don't think the Browns trade back. But Andrew Berry did make a comment today about drafting a player, trading the pick, or trading the pick for a veteran. He made that comment yesterday on Cleveland Browns Daily. So it was interesting, interesting comments. And he's very good about he never says anything by accident. But a lot could happen here, but I do think ultimately they end up with Travis Hunter.
Yeah, I agree. I think they do stay put. And you're right about mock drafts, by the way. I think it's just like mock draft exhaustion. And everyone's just looking for like to do the contrarian thing. Everyone's like, no, everyone's taking Travis Hunter, so I'm gonna have him take Ashton Genty. It's like, okay, like let's be real. To make my final one as realistic as possible. So Travis Hunter is both of our pick at 2, rightfully so. We spent a lot of time talking about a guy that's pretty much etched in stone. Then for me, at pick 33, yes, I stayed put. I did not trade up. For what it's worth, I've tried throughout this pre-draft process through PFF's mock draft simulator to see how far Shedeur would ever fall. Like I just would like do it for fun to see like, okay, first like 2 rounds, how far does he fall? How far does he fall? And the most I could ever get him to fall was like 21 of the Steelers. The Steelers almost always took him at 21. So if he fell even that far. So like, I was trying to see if it would get to a point where he'd fall, and then I consider maybe trading back up for him. It never happened. And so understanding that, I was like, okay, I'm just going to stay put. And at 33, I add offensive line. I always think if you're at a spot where there's a number of guys that are kind of available, that there's some good value on, but you don't want to like necessarily reach, you almost can never go wrong getting like meat and potato players like offensive lineman, defensive lineman. And because left tackle is a need for this team, no, it's not the sexiest pick, but I like the idea of Connerly here to sort of shore up that left side of the offensive line and give yourself a tackle of the future.
Yeah, I love this pick. We were talking about it pre-show. This guy, Josh Connerly, he would be like a perfect fit for Kevin Stefanski for the Cleveland Browns. He's everything you'll want in a left tackle, and like you said, it's so important to shore up that side, that position, and do it for a long time. We don't got to preach to Browns faithful on how important a left tackle is or how valuable it is. We had one of the best of all time for 11, 12 straight years. So I would love this pick if he does fall into the second round. I think that you get a star there with that one.
Yeah, and I think people sort of remember from the Senior Bowl him getting like run over by Mike Green, but that was like a small sample size thing. Like, oh, that shouldn't be the lasting image of him. He's a really stout guy. He's got the right size you're looking for at that position. And like to get him at 33, like, you're banking on him sort of solidifying the spot. He'll have a chance to develop. And you sort of get to start fresh at a position that obviously Andrew Berry missed on when he took Jay Wills. So I felt good about this one, even though, like I said, it's not going to be a move that like quote unquote moves the needle for Browns fans. They're not going to be like thrilled about a left tackle drafted. But, if in this instance, I took that, and I took my chances, by the way, on waiting for a quarterback, because I think that this is where things are going to get interesting, Max, because 33 could be where like that run on that next group of quarterbacks happens. But, for me, the value hasn't necessarily been there anytime I've done these mocks. And so I've always gone sort of against that and sort of taken my chance to see what was there when the third round started.
Yeah, no, I think you're dead right. And I also would be very curious. I'd be surprised, truthfully, if Cleveland stays at 33. That pick is oftentimes traded for, right? You're right next to the Super Bowl champion and the second best team in the league, right? So they don't need as much. You can easily do a flip with one of those guys to get back into that first round. Wouldn't be shocked if Cleveland does something like that. But if they get Josh Connolly like you have him, I think that's a great draft. While you go kind of meat and potatoes, I'll go with the sexy pick because while you couldn't, we're hiding here. While you couldn't get Shedeur to fall, I got Shedeur to fall somehow, some way. No, I do think in my simulation he fell to 33. I do think that I tweeted it the other day. I think if he gets past 9, if he gets past New Orleans, I think that it is all systems go for Cleveland to go try and get him, because I think, like you said, 21 is that spot where it would be the next quarterback, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. The interesting part is right before them is the Denver Broncos, and the Denver Broncos are in the running back market. Their team's ready to go. We obviously watched firsthand Bo Nix torch our secondary. The Broncos need a run game. That's something they really lacked last year. This running back class is deep. They would be a prime trade target at 20, a trade partner at 20 to go up and get Shedeur if they need to. Like you said, I don't anticipate Shedeur being available at 33, but I do anticipate Cleveland making a move for him if he does get past number 9. So for my pick, we're taking Shedeur Sanders, and the Colorado boys take over downtown Cleveland.
I love this draft on your side of things so far. I mean, listen, if Shedeur falls to 33, again, you sprint to the podium, in my opinion. Like, the value's there at that point. That whole situation is going to be fascinating. I think if he falls past 9, I think for the Browns to trade up, he would have to fall further. Like, I think he'd have to be in the 20s for them to consider it. Because if he's only at 9 and you're like, we got to get to like 12 or 13 or 14 or 50, like, you should have just taken him at 2 then if you value him that much, because now you have to overpay to get up there. Like, if it's like 25, it's going to cost you less. And so I could see that move. I also think, like, Andrew Berry's comments about the 5th-year option thing and how they don't necessarily prioritize that was interesting, because the quarterback is the position that you would prioritize it the most. Prolong, having to pay him a contract extension, all those different things. And that's why I'm weary of the idea. I would love it if he falls to 33. I'm weary of it actually happening, though, because even if the Browns don't want to trade up for Shedeur, I think there will be a team that will try to do that at the end of the first round just to get that 5th-year option on him.
Yeah. So it's interesting. The 5th-year option conversation is interesting because I think that a perfect example was Justin Fields in Chicago, because I think that the 5th-year option conversation, I actually don't think it applies to quarterbacks, because you look at a quarterback who comes out of the gates and is good. Teams are going to try to sign him immediately. They're going to try to extend him in year 2 and year 3 to try to get a discount on him in the future. Now, for quarterbacks, if you have a question mark on a quarterback, i.e. Justin Fields in Chicago, you might not let him get to year 5, and you may already just be punting on it and be like, hey, we missed. Let's get him out of town. Let's start fresh. So I'm not as keen on that being a huge factor for a quarterback pick. Some of the other picks, yes, for sure. But the reason I say 9, Spence, is because 9 is the New Orleans Saints, and then picks 10 through 20 are the Chicago Bears. They have a quarterback. San Francisco, they have a quarterback. Dallas, they have a quarterback. Miami, they have a quarterback. Indianapolis has a quarterback. Atlanta has a quarterback. Arizona has a quarterback. Cincinnati, Seattle, Tampa Bay all have quarterbacks. So it's like, hey, none of those teams are going to be picking quarterback. They can be trade partners for you, but they're all ahead of Pittsburgh, who's certainly going to take quarterback.
Yeah, you bring up a good point on, like, the contract extension thing. I also do think that a lot of times those extensions don't start, though, until like going into year 5 or after year 5. Like, that's the thing, is like it's tacked on to the end because you prolong the years that you basically like don't have to pay that player maximum money. Like that. Yeah. That's kind of my point, is it still matters to have that extra year to sort of just build the team around the guy. And so for the quarterback, that's why I think it is the most important to have a 5th-year option on if you can get it. But we'll see what happens. Listen, your draft is immaculate to me. If it fell that
It
way,
works like that.
I would love to see Shador. I would love to see Shador be the pick at 33. But I question if he makes it that far or not. I also think like the truth is probably somewhere in the middle. All you've heard is like he's a second round pick, or hey, he could go top 10. My guess is he probably falls somewhere in like the 10 to 25 range is where he ends up getting taken.
I forget who said it, but I heard it yesterday. It was like Shador Sanders is the first prospect you either have to love or hate. Like for some reason you can't just like him.
Yeah, it's
like,
crazy.
He's crazy. He's good. People are comparing him to Drew Brees. If he has Drew Brees' career, he can go. His bus is going to Canton, Ohio. Like, that's what it's going to be. So that would be if this happens at 2 and 33. I think it'd be great. I think that the Browns. I don't know why. I have a sneaking suspicion that they're going to try to make a push for Sanders, but I guess time's going to tell.
That brings us to the third round where the Browns pick 67. And this is where I finally go quarterback for the Browns. And I had Jalen Milroe available, so I pulled the trigger. And here's the thing. I have been pretty adamant that as a prospect, I don't love Jalen Milroe. The accuracy issues just bother me. The tape says a lot about his ability to be a quarterback at the next level. But here's the thing. If you're taking a quarterback in the second or third round or beyond that, you want to take the guy that has like the highest ceiling or the potential to like just blow up immensely and become, this elite player. Mm-hmm. And of all the guys in that next group of quarterbacks, and even to an extent, like even Shador, like I think Shador, when you watch his tape, like he does have limitations to his game. Like I just think like he fits exactly what you want for Kevin Stefanski's offense.
Yeah.
So I think he can thrive in it and be a really good quarterback. In the same way that I think like Bo Nix has a ceiling that's lower, but you can also like see him have success in the system that he's in, right? So I think I sort of think of that with Shador. So yeah, like he might not be the athlete that somebody like Cam Ward or Jalen Milroe is, but I think he fits what you want to do, and he's just going to be like a steady quarterback. Mm-hmm. And it's safer, I guess, is a good way to put it. With Milroe, there's a little more risk there. But the idea that like he's this freak of nature athlete that can just absolutely take over for you, and it's faster than Lamar Jackson, people are saying, and more elusive than Cam Newton and whatever. Like you take that guy any day, because if you're not drafting a quarterback in the first round and you don't have to worry about the risk quite as much because of the ceiling and the potential that exists there. So as much as I don't love Milroe as a prospect right now, I think like, especially if he were available at 67, it makes way too much sense for the Browns to not pull the trigger on a guy like that, because the opportunity to see him pan out is, I guess, a little bit higher because of what he brings to the table. And if it doesn't work out as a quarterback, you can always use him as something else, right? Like because of his athleticism, like just get the ball in his hands, like he could be a Justin Field type. So I don't know. It's interesting too, Max, because like I go back and forth on Milroe in terms of like the Browns' interest in him. I've heard they're sort of interested in him. There's been some talk about that. They held a private workout with him, but like look at use the context clues of the quarterback room they built, right? It's pocket passers. It's Joe Flacco. It's Kenny Pickett. So he doesn't necessarily fit that mold. I know they say they can build an offense around anybody, but like they just tried that with the last quarterback and it didn't work out. So I don't know that he fits like exactly what they're trying to go back to. But I also understand, like, if they really like him and they think they can make it work with him, they're probably just going to pull the trigger because he's got the highest ceiling of the group that consists of, like, him, Jackson Dart, Tyler Shuck, Will Howard, whatever you want to say. Like, he is the guy that you go for if you're getting a quarterback in the second round or beyond.
And I would say, to add to everything that you said, Spence, if it doesn't work out and they do have to punt on it, you feel much better about them punting on a third-round pick than anything really above that. I think that that's where things kind of change. I would also add context clues as well. Tommy Rees was his coach at Alabama. Rees, the offensive coordinator for the Cleveland Browns, was Milroe's OC down in Tuscaloosa. So familiarity there for sure. But I think it would be a risky pick. I wouldn't be excited about it if they do go that way, just because some of the stuff that I've seen, like the good is like super good. It's like really good. Watch the Georgia tape. It's like one of the best games of quarterback you'll ever see. The bad's not good. The bad is like really bad. And that fluctuation, I think, is a little too much for me.
And listen, I've already been saying this. Whatever quarterback they're taking is like the next guy in line in this draft, or the highest quarterback take. We're going to see all three of these quarterbacks play next year. Flacco's going to play. Pickett's going to play. If it's Milroe's going to play. I don't know that Milroe's ready to play day one. I think and he's going to need some time to sort of, get himself acclimated and ready to play at the next level. But like they're going to have to evaluate whoever they take and on some level. So I think they're going to play towards the end of the season type thing. I think if it's like Tyler Shuck, who's more pro ready right now, he could play sooner. I think if it's Shedeur Sanders, he could also play sooner. But Milroe is going to have to wait a little bit. But I do think you'll see him play a little bit next year, and then you'll get a sense of like what he looks like versus the tape that we've been watching for months now, and that we're all sort of concerned with.
What if the Browns are 16-1 with Flacco?
And I guess he wouldn't play. Then never mind. But I don't think Joe Flacco is going to make it to 17 games.
Flacco fever is 2 years. 2 years still here. So all right, my draft. My third round. We get your guy in my third round.
Did you just do this draft to like? Are you trying to like get something from me?
Dude,
are you trying to like? This feels like when you do something bad, or you're like, no, not when you do something bad. This feels like when you are trying to like go to some party or something in high school with your boys, and you're like doing stuff around the house to like make your mom like be like okay with it, and then you're like, hey, yeah, like Tommy invited me over, we're gonna go hang with the boys tonight. And she's like, are there going to be parents there? And you're like, I don't know. And she's like, well, I don't know how I feel about this. But you're like, but hey, I did like it's like you trying to win me over or something. Like what are you buttering me up for? I don't understand.
Just wait till you need something from me at the Cavs game tonight when you're and just wait for that. I'll remind you of this. But all right, we go Quinshon Judkins in the third round. He's still available there. Browns need a running back, obviously. We're hopeful that they re-sign Nick Chubb, but even if they do re-sign Nick Chubb, that's going to be more of like a morale thing. I think Nick Chubb certainly on the back nine, if you will, of his NFL career, thanks to his two massive injuries. So I think you get younger at that position. And Quinshon Judkins, for everybody who's watching our show today, for you and I who watch the Ohio State Buckeyes pretty closely, this guy's just a football player. This is a dude here. He was awesome last year for the Buckeyes and gives that Kareem Hunt vibe, for a lot of reasons. But my favorite part about him is that this dude loves contact. He will run through your face again and again and again and again as an ode to an old running back, Marshawn Lynch. But he will run straight through your face. He's physical as heck. He's a great athlete, and he's a big-time player. And I think if the Browns can pull that off in that third round, I think this would be an awesome pick for him.
I love this. I mean, this is like my dream draft.
Well, yeah.
Travis Hunter, Shedeur, and Quinshon Judkins. I mean, I've been literally crushing on Quinshon Judkins this entire process. He's my favorite running back in this class because he's like Kareem Hunt. He's just going to run your ass over. Yeah. And I love that about him. So, yeah, which is actually kind of ironic because later on, I'll sort of just set up a tease here. I get a running back that's also a very physical runner that sort of remind me of like Quinshon Judkins light. So we'll get to that coming up. But I mean, I have no qualms with this whatsoever. If this is how this thing shook out, like I'd be like ecstatic about covering this team next year. Yeah. Like I'd be walking out of Berea on Saturday with like a whole new energy about the season. I'd probably be like picking like 14 and 15 and 2. Yeah. I keep forgetting that 17 years, 15 and 2. Like I'd be all in on the Cleveland Browns this year making the playoffs. Like it'd be absurd.
Imagine how unhinged I would be. I never picked him to lose last year during the season. Imagine if we get this. No, if this would be a dream start. Shedeur's the big question mark on my board, but I do think Quinshon is a viable option later in that third round. I think that's realistic for sure.
By the way, I promise you guys we're not going to take this long with like
everything.
Once we get past round the fourth round, I think we're going to start to.
I will say though, you need to stick around because the guy I get at pick 192 is maybe one of my favorite picks in the draft.
That's fair. All right, so this is where I started to think about like I started really thinking about value, and there's a number of directions the Browns could still go. Now, if it was up to me and I was the Browns GM, I'd be going offense, offense, offense. Like I would use these top 100 picks all on offensive players, and I've mocked that before throughout this pre-draft process. But in this instance, I was sitting there, I was trying to think like a GM in the NFL. I was trying to think like Andrew Berry. I think this team does want to add some more defensive line help, especially some edge rusher help, and they get a young guy to UCLA who's kind of consensusly been like around the top 10 in terms of like this class, in a deep edge class, by the way. And so I went with UCLA's Oluwafemi Oladejo, and yeah, I was practicing that in the mirror this morning.
That before.
But listen, I think he's a pretty solid player overall. I don't know that he's like, start him immediately or anything, but I think he's a guy that can rotate in, especially in his rookie year, and have an impact for you. And so I kind of went against the offensive grain here and went defense. And again, because it's a deep class at edge, maybe you could wait a little longer to find somebody that you like. But I felt like the value was there based off like how the board was kind of falling. And it seemed like the type of pick that Andrew Berry would maybe consider here. So I pulled the trigger on it, and here we are. So I don't necessarily love that I made that pick, but I think it's a worthy player to go at 94 if they were to think defense here.
You made a good point early on when we were talking about Abdul Carter. Like, it's a real thing that this edge class is deep, and you're going to be able to get some real diamonds in the rough late in the draft. And you always talk about the top 100 picks. You got to hit on those. Those could be potential elite players. So if they can steal one there, depth on that defensive line is never a problem, especially like you said earlier. Jim Schwartz loves subbing those guys in and out there as their track, or excuse me, they're like their NASCAR packages. So I think that could be really good. On the flip side, I go offensive line here at 94. So Cameron Williams, tackle from Texas. You get our tackle with the 33rd overall pick. I take care of the tackle position there at 94. This is another great fit for Kevin Stefanski. That style that he likes to run, that outside zone, that power running style that the Browns use, and then it's more importantly off of play action. That's where they love the pass. That's where they're going to major in next year and years to come. So I take Cameron Williams off the board and shore up that left side of our line.
So here's my question for you. Cameron Williams is a right tackle. Are you keeping him at right tackle? Are you moving into left tackle?
It's a good point. No, that some guys can make that flip. That is.
So you're going to try to Jay Wills' thing again?
No. It's truly it's truly, talk about mock draft fatigue. This is truly a mistake on my side. I forgot that he was a right tackle to be a left tackle. So I
wasn't trying to put you on the spot like that.
You put me on the spot.
No.
Listen, that's great draft. This is the payback for it, because I've done 300,000 of these mock drafts. You mess up and pick a right tackle.
I mean, listen, I still think they could consider this, and I think Cameron Williams is going to be a fine player. And listen, like, they're going to need a right tackle probably anyway next year, because Jack Conklin's on the last year of his deal now that they kind of reworked his deal, and Dwayne Jones is constantly hurt. So until he can kind of prove otherwise, you might still need a right tackle. So I'm not saying it's a bad pick at all. I'm just asking, like, is this a move where, like, you just draft the guy and you say, like, okay, if he's great, we'll keep him on the right side? Or are you trying to make that flip to left tackle? Because it could work. Like you said, some guys can make that jump, but it's also the Browns fans, I think, will sort of shudder at that thought, because the last time they tried this, we know what happened. It's Jay Wills, who's now still a free agent because they don't want to bring him back.
Great. That part of the conversation is nuts that he's still a free agent. But no, the intent of this pick was Cameron Williams, the right tackle. I spoke about him as a left tackle because I've seen a million left tackle LTs in my brain after doing a bunch of these. So no, I keep him at right tackle. I think adding that piece is still important, still really good. Especially, like I said, this isn't, this is a top 100 pick. This is round 3. This is pick 94. If you can get a great depth piece for next year with some of these guys who are going to be a little bit older, Jack Conklin, coming off again, some injuries in the past couple of seasons. It's always good to have depth there. And then if he does move on, now you have a young group of guys ready to continue on that offensive line.
So that brings us to round 4. And this is where I finally get to running back. As I teased, another physical guy, Damian Martinez out of Miami. Like you put on his tape, this is another guy that seeks out contact. He loves to like run guys over. He's pretty light on his feet in that way. not a great pass catcher. Like he's not going to be somebody that you send out on routes down the field necessarily and throw him the football. He can be decent as like a check down guy. But he's kind of like I envision. I actually think Nick Chubb was always an underrated pass catcher, and they just never really used him that way. But I don't like. I feel like this would be a similar role for him when Nick Chubb entered the league, where it's like we're not going to use him in those situations. He's going to be sort of our power runner, first and second down, maybe third down if it's third and short. But then you have somebody like Jerome Ford who can come in and sort of be that third down guy, that passing situation guy if you need to, and he can catch passes out of the backfield. Now, what does that mean? What does drafting any running back mean for Nick Chubb returning? I still think there's a place where that happens, or room for that to happen, and he can sort of be like, listen, Nick Chubb was part of a backfield where he shared reps, right, with him and Kareem Hunt. I think that it prolongs somebody like Martinez or whoever's career, gives them a chance to sort of, split reps and not, wear down and take the hits. And so I would imagine that player will be on board with that. But I liked this pick here. The value's there. I really was hoping like DJ Giddens could fall too. I really like him out of Kansas State. He's another guy I've been watching a lot more of lately. But I'm okay settling on Martinez if they wait this long to go running back. And it is a deep class, so I think there's still some value in a player like this at this juncture of it. But obviously I like yours better when you end up with Quinshon Judkins.
Yeah, no, I mean, but I would say, like, look across the league. Like, without Saquon Barkley's obviously the outlier because he was a top 5 pick. And, when he got onto a roster that was ready for a running back, he excelled and he was fantastic. Now you look at a guy like Isaiah Pacheco, like he is the consummate late round draft pick who became a star. And you're rarely he can catch the ball out of the backfield, he can do it fine, but he also can just run right through your face mask and get tough yards and be a great player. But this could be kind of fall into that category of like, hey, this is a great player, middle of the draft, a guy who can change the game for you, but also it's not going to cost you a lot. Like the pick 104, I'm fine, taking a step at a running back there.
The running back pick, because they're going to take a running back at some point. They might, I mean, damn, they might take 2 running backs for all we know. Mm-hmm. But the running back, drafting a running back for this team is all going to come down to like how much value they're placing on that position, even after Saquon last year. I think it's super valuable because you're going back to Stefanski's offense. Like you need a good running back in this system, or like his basic offense, or like the sort of true version of it. But if they sort of feel like, listen, we're not a team that likes to draft running back very high. I know Nick Chubb was drafted high, but he was here before they got here, right? This regime. So if they're not a group that feels like they need to go high on a running back and they know this class is deep, I honestly think like pick 104 could be where the sweet spot for a guy if someone like Martinez is still available. So we'll see, but it's all going to come down to like how much they value that position. They could take a running back as high as 33. They could take one as late as I think 104. I think once you get past this point, it's slimmer pickings. Mm-hmm. But I think this is a spot that could potentially pull the trigger. Yes,
no doubt. I love the rationale, and I think that that it would make a lot of sense. Now, for me, this guy has appeared in every single draft that I've done, every mock draft that I've done. Harold Fenton Jr. I couldn't be. This is the guy that I want. This is my I guess North Star, if you will. He's a Canton kid. Went to Canton McKinley High School, then went to college at Bowling Green, and arguably became one of the best tight ends in football. He had the most yards out of any tight end, including Tyler Warren last year, and he didn't just do it against Ball State, or he didn't just do it against Akron or Kent. Like his 2 best games were against Texas A&M and against Penn State, where he had over 100 yards receiving in both those games. He's done it at the biggest level, at the highest level, and he's a star. He's exactly what you want. And bringing him onto this team, Kevin Stefanski's system behind David Njoku, where tight ends are as important as can be, with Joe Flacco, who loves throwing to tight ends, I think could be an awesome fit in both the short term, right away next year, and in the long run for years to come.
Another pick that I absolutely love. I've mocked Fannin at this exact spot too. This feels like a round where he's going to get taken is like end of the 3rd round, early 4th round. And yeah, like if he ended up being the pick, I think it'd be a fun story given that he's the local kid, all those different things. I also, here's the thing, and this is going to end up being my biggest gripe with my own draft, is where I end up taking tight end, which we'll get to here in a second, because I think that's a bigger need than people probably think. I think people know it's important, especially with David Njoku going to last year's deal. He didn't look like the same player last year. He just did not look as athletic. So like you got to start thinking about this. But the other reason I sort of think it's a bigger priority is the fact that Stefanski's offense, again, how many times does he go 12 personnel? Like, he loves having 2 tight ends out there.
Dude, 13 personnel too. Like he can go 14. He loves tight ends.
Right. So knowing that they want more tight ends out in the field, I think you have to think about where you're taking that position, because that's another player for you, like both blocking and pass. It's a pass catcher for you, but also like blocking wise, it's another person that needs to be out there to sort of help with your run game. There's a lot of factors that kind of come into play there, but I love that you went with this here, and that's my biggest regret for my draft is I didn't go tight end higher.
I think that if they come out of this draft with him, like that's the guy I want. Like I'm going to be zoned in rounds 3, 4, and 5. Like go get Harold Fannin. I think he can be that type of a guy for this.
So real quick, I think what I want to do here is let's just fast forward through the 6th round. Like get to the very end, 6th round. Like go to my 6th round, all the way through 216.
216.
There you go. Oh shoot! I should have cut you off at 200. That's right. That's my bad.
I
spilled the beans. It's okay.
I'll gush over him regardless.
Well, so we'll spend the most time on that. But so at 179, I have the Browns taking R.J. Mickens out of Clemson, safety. He is generally ranked on a lot of like the people who like really know this stuff in like the top 10 in terms of safeties, and we know that's a position of need for the Browns. After trading or after parting ways with Juan Thornhill. The nice thing about Mickens is like he feels like your prototypical free safety. Really good in coverage coming out of Clemson. He's got some really nice tape on being able to cover guys in different systems and coverage schemes. So I like that about him, and it felt like a good like value. Value is kind of the theme of my draft, but I thought there was good value there with him still being on the board at this point. Ty Robinson out of Nebraska, defensive interior guy. I took him in a previous mock draft that I did, which you can also find over at Cleveland Browns on SI. We know that Nebraska defensive line was really, really good. I mean, they gave Ohio State some trouble during the game they played last year, and Robinson was part of that. Again, I'm not expecting Ty Robinson. He's got like all the traits that you look for in terms of like, physically he's a pretty big guy, but like there's some rawness to his game he's going to have to sort of round into form and get better at. But the idea of adding some depth, a rotational guy for Jim Schwartz, we know that's how he likes to run how he likes to do things in his defense. So I like that here, and I thought Ty Robinson again had some value. Pick 200. This is where I finally go tight end. Jalen Conyers out of Texas Tech, a guy who, listen, he's not the greatest of prospects, sort of coming in here. He's got some really good ball skills. He's shown some athleticism. He does need to work on some things as a blocker. I guess I'm kind of banking on here, like David Njoku, nurturing him with that a little bit. Like David Njoku didn't want to block when he entered the NFL, right? But he is now, I think, one of the best blocking tight ends in football because of his willingness to sort of work out at that as a craft. And so that's a good person to sort of have mentor you. But this is what I mean when I say I probably waited longer than I wanted to for tight end. But this felt like the right pick at this time, and Conyers kind of fits what the Browns need. And I do think like he could be a nice, red zone target potentially for Cleveland, especially with the ball skills that he has.
Yeah. I would say important to note here is that the Browns, we've talked about it a lot. The Browns have a lot of draft capital, but you go from round 4, pick 104 to round 6, pick 179. That's a long stretch of time.
75 picks. Like it's 75 picks.
I would say that this is prime trade cap. This isn't breaking news and certainly don't have any inside sources on this. But I would just say, just looking at this board right here, this would be a prime area where, hey, if you don't want 3 6-round picks or 4 6-round picks, you could try to package a couple together to get into the 5th to try to move
get back up into the 5th. And I think that's really well said, because we know the Browns don't have a 5th because they traded for Kenny Pickett along with DTR. But if there's a guy they really want, this does feel like the place to do it, right? Like, hey, let's package some of these 6 together with maybe like a future pick or something, get up into the 5th and make something happen in terms of like getting a guy that we really like over just taking a bunch of depth pieces. I still sort of am reserved to the idea that they're not going to make all of these picks when it's all said and done. It's just a lot of picks. But they also have a lot of holes to fill, so maybe they will. Yeah. But yeah, like I agree with you that this could be where they do that. I'll round out here with pick 216.
Let's go.
Doubled up on the quarterback. That's right. Curtis Rourke out of Indiana coming to Cleveland. I thought at this point, like, why not? The value's there. Milroe's going to be the guy you're trying to really develop, but Rourke gets a chance to come in, compete. I think he has a lot of like the physical traits that you look for in a quarterback coming in. He's actually shown he's pretty good against with navigating pressure, I think, in the pocket. He also, though, is like a little more inaccurate once he speeds up his process and tries to get the ball. He had a lot of balls batted down at the line of scrimmage. And, there's some inconsistencies with just like him accuracy wise. And he sometimes throws it into harm's way. But here's the thing. The Browns are going to carry 4 quarterbacks this offseason. They always do. 2 rookies, chance to sort of compete. Somebody pushed back on this, by the way, and they were like, why would they draft a quarterback in the 6th round knowing that you lose all value of a rookie contract if you don't keep him and you make him a practice squad guy, but you're not going to cut Flacco or because you just added those guys. And I was like, here's the thing, man. For me, it was about more bites at the apple. You're drafting 2 quarterbacks. If you move on from a 6th round pick, no one's really going to be that mad that you use a 6th round pick on a quarterback. Or to me, it's a good. I guess my answer is it's a good problem to have. If Rourke competes at a pretty high level, has a good preseason, maybe you flip him for a 7th rounder next year or something like that. To me, I'd rather know you have some options here and you're just kind of trying some things and you might as well just see what you can get out of a guy. And so I didn't mind the pick here, but I understand where that person was coming from when they criticized it and said the point of taking a quarterback late is you have value in the most important position for a guy who isn't necessarily on a major contract. I get that, but for me it was more important about bites at the apple, having 4 quarterbacks in the offseason, letting them kind of go out and compete, and who knows, maybe if he play well, maybe he would earn a spot over somebody like Kenny Pickett. Who knows?
Yeah, there's where it stands out to me is they've been very loud about they did a lot of work on Kenny Pickett when he was coming out. They've seen him. They think he's good. This could be that last spot where it's all right, we got our future rookie, right? You took him. You take Jalen Milroe. Now, hey, we're going to give Kenny a chance to, we brought him in, but we're going to give him a chance to compete for that 3rd spot, right? And guess what? Like you said, if you miss out on a 6th round pick at quarterback, all right, fine. That's A-okay. We got bigger fish to fry in Cleveland. I'm all right with it. And the reason I'm all right with it is because if you look at my full 6th round, you
did the same thing. Good old Kyle McCord.
I'll skip to 216, then I'll work myself back up. But I do the same exact thing with Kyle McCord. Now, McCord, interesting.
Coming back to Ohio.
So bring him back to Ohio. I do some work for Ohio State, similar capacity as we're doing for the Cleveland Browns. So I watch every single game. I have been doing it for past couple seasons. And watching Kyle McCord at Ohio State compared to watching Kyle McCord at Syracuse, it's 2 different players. It's just 2 totally, totally different players. And let's just say that final drive goes a little bit different against Michigan. We're probably having a little bit different conversation about Kyle McCord, the Ohio State Buckeye, as opposed to Kyle McCord, the Syracuse Orange. Is it Orangeman?
Yeah, it's just Orange. Orangeman was retired a while ago, but
Orange. Anyway, I have a lot of confidence in this kid. He can rip it. That ball jumps out of his hand. He's a little bit smaller, and I'm allowed to say that. I played quarterback small. I'm a small quarterback. I can say that he's a little bit smaller of a guy, but I take him with pick 216. Very similar to you. Good value pick, and if it works out,
he's gonna have a Wizard of Oz situation when he gets to the NFL, though, and he's gonna be thrown against these AFC North teams, and it's gonna be it's Dorothy. I don't think we're in Kansas anymore. Kyle, I don't think you're in the ACC anymore. Sorry. These defenses are too good now. But anyway.
Spencer's a hater. Spencer remembers that Michigan.
I am a hater. Will Howard won a championship. Kyle McCord, what'd you do?
What's that?
I said, Will Howard won a championship. I thought that was funny, too, that the day that they lost to Michigan, he was asked that question about, hey, would you see that they lost? And he was like, everything comes full circle. And then it was like, yeah, it does come full circle. And then they went and won a championship after that.
Such a hater. Yeah, you're gonna have to give it up. You're gonna have a Cotton McCord jersey. You're gonna give one to your son one day.
Never. Do you know my rule on jerseys? I'm never getting one.
Yeah, no, you're giving one to your son, is what you're going to do. It's going to be
no chance. No chance.
All right, moving back to the first pick of round 6, Malachi Moore. He's my safety. He comes from Alabama, stud type of a player. A little bit smaller, on the little bit smaller side, 6 foot tall, but does everything that you could want out of a safety, and I really like him there. Any type of defensive back that was recruited by Nick Saban that went through the Alabama program, I'm comfortable bringing into to my program here. The pick that I love, these next 2 picks, I love. Connor Colby, the first one. We're going to go 2 Big Ten guys. Connor Colby, the guard actually out of Iowa. Any chance you have to take an Iowa offensive lineman, I think you do it.
And guy, tight ends. Iowa tight ends too.
Tight end, dude. The one that keeps me up at night is not drafting Tristan Wirfs and taking Jed Wills instead. Tristan Wirfs, Iowa tackle, but Colby, not a tackle, but he's got a tackle body. 6'6", 310 pounds. He's had some experience all throughout the offensive line. He played in his freshman season, I guess his sophomore season, his first season playing. He played the majority of his snaps at left guard, but also played a really healthy amount at right tackle. So that shows you that he has the ability to kind of bounce around. He's got that versatility to him. He played a handful of snaps at right guard as well. Then in 2023 and 2024, he found his home where he played exclusively at the right guard position. Graded out very well in his season there. If the Browns can pick him at pick 192 in round 6, I think you add just another depth piece, a guy that obviously loves football and is going to be a physical specimen that those Iowa Hawkeyes are. Then the last pick I have, round 6, pick 200. If Cody Simon is there, again, a low-risk pick. Anytime you can build depth at the linebacker position, you do it. Cody Simon, unbelievable football player, unbelievable locker room character guy. I think you add a guy like that into your locker room anytime you get the chance. So I love my 6th round. You go a couple defense, you go depth on the offensive line, and then you take future Super Bowl champion Kyle McCord with 260.
Not in Cleveland. I like the rest of those picks. I will say like Simon's a good one, especially because like that's a position I don't have addressed in my draft. I don't have linebacker addressed at all in this draft, and that feels like every year it's a position in need for the Browns, but especially with the JOK stuff going on, and we're not sure about him. It makes sense. I like it.
And Spence, too, like I get to this point in the draft, like there's a point where you just got to take like best player on the board, right? Where it's like, all right, you can address some needs early on, I think, because you can pinpoint, like, hey, there's a better chance that Travis Hunter's going to be successful than not successful. You start getting into the end of the 5th round, 6th round, 7th round. I think you take the best value you could possibly get. If Cody Simon's on the board in the 6th, I think you snag him.
That brings us to the 7th round, which I will make a quick note. I actually have the trading up for Jalen Reed. They moved 20 spots to 235 with the Bucks. Ironically enough, they traded one of their 2 7th rounders next year to get this deal done, and they take Jalen Reed at 235. So they end up coming away with 2 safeties. Little out of the box, especially trading up in the 7th round of all things. But Jalen Reed's another guy, like him and Mickens are sort of graded pretty similarly in terms of like where they are ranking wise. And knowing that safety is a position of need, I sort of feel like the Browns are going to throw minimal resources at that one. Like they're going to draft people. They're going to draft at least one guy, and they're going to kind of just like piecemeal it together at that spot, I think, this year with maybe like Ronnie Hickman and whoever. So, like the idea of trying to get a couple guys that can maybe slot in there, keep that position sort of young and refreshed and not have to spend too much money on it, I think makes some sense. So I like that. Reed isn't quite as good of a coverage guy. He's probably more of a strong safety. He can play down in the box and do some things, but it was good to have depth at that position too. So I liked the pick there. Traded up to get it done because I didn't know if he'd be there at 255, and I just kind of wanted my draft to be over with him. I'm being honest with myself. But that's where I ended, and that's my 7-rounder.
Spence, the Browns are a perfect example of, you may not catch lightning in a bottle twice like they did with Ronnie Hickman, but you take a stab. That's a position that you can take a stab on. And if you find a guy who's worth it and can get the job done late, I think you go all in. I do love it there. All right, my final pick, round 7, pick 255. I go with Ollie Gordon, the second running back out of Oklahoma State. He was the guy early in his career. Really fell off a little bit in his final season last year. So definitely taking some risk there, if you will. I don't think that there's much risk with pick 255. If he pans out and can be Isaiah Pacheco, you're thrilled. If he doesn't pan out, there's no skin off anybody's back. And there. So I take Ollie Gordon there with my final pick.
I like going 2 running backs. It's a smart move. I think it makes a lot of sense. This team needs, a number of guys at that position, not just the whoever they're going to sort of draft to be their premier guy. I don't want to keep anybody longer than an hour for this episode, but I think it's worth asking because we both sort of had different quarterbacks going here. Like the quarterback, you think the Browns, like where do you think they ultimately do end up going quarterback, and who do you think it actually ends up being? Yeah. Because yes, like I want Shedeur Sanders for this team. I think he's a perfect fit. And if he's at 33, then great. But I guess sort of said earlier, I don't know that he's going to fall that far. And ultimately for me, I'm curious to see like where that leaves the Browns in terms of the quarterback position and who they end up with. So I'll ask you first, but if not Shedeur Sanders falling to 33, who do you think they honestly end up with at the quarterback position?
So my two are this. My first option is, and what I think is going to happen, especially as I've thought about it more, it's against Andrew Berry's, I think, philosophy to trade up. He's done it rarely, and I don't think he'll mortgage more of the future than he has to. However, if the Browns have a chance to go trade up and get in front of Pittsburgh to take Shedeur, I think that they will. So I think he either goes to Cleveland at 20 above of Pittsburgh. Now, Pittsburgh could also trade up with anybody. Like I listed that out. That's what I think, and that's what I want. However, if that doesn't happen, let's say he goes 9th overall to the New Orleans Saints. I scares me to say this, but I've had my antennas up ever since Kevin Stefanski did his own trip to Ole Miss to watch Jackson Dart's pro day. Like, I think that there's potentially something there that if they don't get Shedeur, they're not going to come away empty with one of the top 3 guys. I think Dart's on the board there. I think they have to get one of those, I call them the second tier guys, Shook, Dart, and like Howard's like a teeterer there on that second tier. They at least have to get one of those guys, in my opinion, to feel good about this draft.
Yeah, listen, I as much as I'd like Shedeur Sanders, I've kind of subscribed myself to this idea that's probably not going to happen because I think he's going to go first round. I don't know that the Browns are going to be aggressive enough to go get him. And so I'm sort of just approaching the draft with this idea that 33 is where they're going to take quarterback, and that it's probably going to be either Milroe and maybe they don't take one at 33. But I think if they take somebody at 33, it's going to be Milroe, and that then they would sort of wait, or they would wait and try to get Tyler a little bit later. And the reason I say Shuck, and listen, I know people roll their eyes because they're just thinking Brandon Weeden 2.0. This Browns team right now is in a spot where you need the most like ready players, right? Like I talked about all these guys playing at some point. They probably want to get a look at like, okay, can Shuck even be anything for us? So that gives you a chance to play him a little bit sooner to find out what he sort of brings to the table. And if you need to draft a quarterback next year, you'll find out pretty quickly because he's further along in this process. And so it's a guy you can insert and sort of know what to expect a little bit more. And so for that reason, I could see them waiting. I think he also would just like, he can run Stefanski's offense and you can feel pretty good about it. So he's kind of my backup plan. But for whatever reason, man, I've had this gut feeling that they're going to end up with Milroe. And then it's probably going to be a pick 33 because that feels like where the run on quarterbacks maybe begins.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. That's certainly an option they could take for sure. But I'm just really excited, Spence, to just have a guy and to stop looking into the future, looking into our crystal balls, and at least get a guy under our belts and know exactly what we're going to be dealing with, with the quarterback room in this fall.
That's going to do it for our final mock drafts here before the NFL draft gets rolling. As Meg said, It'll finally be behind us. We'll have actual tangible players to talk about. So that's the good news. And very much looking forward to doing that with you on future episodes of this. Just to give you sort of a heads up here, Anthony and I do plan on having plenty of draft coverage for you right here at this channel. So please subscribe if you haven't done so already to make sure that you can stay in the loop on everything. We'll have some sort of probably like a quickie conversation after the first pick is made. If they trade back in, we'll have one. But we'll at the end of the night, we'll do like a longer form, 20 to 30 minute type deal where we'll talk to you guys. That might not go up to like Friday morning. We'll see. But just the idea here is we're going to talk after the end of each day and sort of give you a sense of like what we think is happening, who we think is still available, who are options for the Browns in the next couple of days after. And we'll react to each pick as well and just kind of be able to recap some things with you. So subscribe to the channel and obviously head on over to si.com/NFL/Browns because we'll have all sorts of written content over there for you as well throughout the draft process. You're going to want to stay in the loop on this stuff, and we got you covered over there.
Yeah. One thing I'm really excited about this one, whoever the Browns do pick, whether it's Cam Ward, whether it's Shador, whether it's Travis Hunter, whether it's Abdul Carter, we're going to have one of my favorite things to do on our channels. We're going to have a film review show. It's going to be a quick one, and it'll drop right after they put the pick in, right when it comes up on the board. So if you're not interested in watching whoever the Giants pick, or if you are, throw us up on your tablet, throw us up on your phone or whatever it may be. We're going to break down some of the top plays of our next future Brown, whoever it may be. I'm really excited to bring it to you. So that'll happen literally right after the pick is dropped. We'll be right back here on our YouTube channel. So make sure
when the Browns throw everybody for a loop and they take Ashton Genty, you can check that out over at the channel.
So check it out on the channel. That one might come 10 minutes later. Ashton Genty might happen a couple minutes later, but the other guys will be ready to fire right away.
All right, guys, we appreciate you stopping by. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you stuck it out for the entire hour here to hear me make fun of Kyle McCord and talk about drafting 2 quarterbacks. In the meantime, get excited. It's draft day is almost here. Watch watch that movie. That was always my tradition. Watch draft day leading up to the draft.
All right, can we talk about this real quick? 1 minute.
What?
Draft day.
Do I think it's a good movie?
Yes.
I think it's an entertaining movie is I think the way I would put it. I think one of the funniest things about that movie is that guy that tracked all the different places that Kevin Costner goes before the draft. Like he's on he wakes up in his house on the west side, and then he drove all the way across town to go to what is it, like the Geauga Lake amusement park that's not even there anymore. Yeah. Like he goes there, which is like the east side. Then he drives like back across town to go to the team facility in Berea. Like he's all over the place. Yeah. He drives past at one point he drives past like the Guardian Stadium. Like he's just driving all over. What is the point of that? Like why are you driving all over Cleveland just to get to Berea where you were closer to when you woke up? So that's one of the funniest things. But I think it's an entertaining movie. And
I'm no movie critic. It doesn't hit for me. It just doesn't.
That's surprising. A football movie that Megs doesn't like.
We found one, but I don't know.
You don't like that he trades all his picks and then gets them all back?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's something about sports movies that like, if it's
you don't like that they find out why people didn't go to Bo Callahan's birthday.
Yeah, like come on, what are we like?
I mean, you remember who his agent was, right? That's probably why people didn't go to his party. Just saying.
Well, yeah. But on our next episode of Rotten Tomatoes,
I'll leave that one there.
We'll be breaking down The Dark Knight, and yeah, there we go.
We can start doing movie reviews during the off season.
We're gonna get into.
Should we start doing football movie reviews during like July when there's nothing else going on?
I don't hate it. I'm down for that, and maybe I'll come around on draft day. Maybe I will.
I like this idea. This is some good content during the dog days of summer when we don't have football. So we'll think about doing football movie reviews come summertime. But in the meantime, we appreciate you and keep on following along with all things Cleveland Browns with the Cleveland Browns on SI.